the next muscle that we'll be considering in our Hydrotherm how-to series is actually part of a group of muscles called the quadriceps at the front of the thigh. You can see here. And the muscle we're going to be focusing on is Rectus Femoris. Literally means to straighten the femur. Now this muscle has two origins, has two insertions, and has two actions. To locate this muscle, we're going to start with a surface anatomy reference that we can all feel, that bony part at the front of the hip. This is called the anterior superior iliac spine. As you can imagine, if there's a superior part of it, then there's an inferior part of it, just a couple of fingers below. And this is actually the area that we're interested in. It's useful to have a reference above. We can't actually feel the anterior inferior iliac spine, which is one of the origins of Rectus Femoris, because the tendon is too thick. We can actually feel that when we go through one of the actions of the muscle, which is to flex the hip. So the first insertion of Rectus Femoris is the anterior inferior iliac spine. The next is on the supraacetabular groove. Now the acetabulum is the cup, it literally means socket or cup, and it is the cup of the hip into which the ball and socket joint fits. So the supra groove of the acetabulum is the second origin of Rectus Femoris. The muscle then comes down the thigh, attaches into the common patella tendon, which comes through here, and the patella itself. So the actions then are to extend the knee and to flex the hip. If we now look at the Hydrotherm massage techniques that relate to the area of Rectus Femoris, or the quads, at first glance it looks like we're working on this part of the body in the same way that we would do in a standard massage. But the air support that sits underneath the knees with Hydrotherm actually gives us a significant advantage. If the leg's straight, which often is the case in standard massage, we're actually introducing tension into the back of the leg, which, because the muscles work in opposition to the front of the leg, actually introduces tension to the quads. So having the knee bent in this way, but still being able to have a support that's not affected by oil directly against the skin, really does facilitate the massage in this area, and equally allows the leg to stay supported even if the knee is abducted or adducted. So our massage movements here are being helped by the water underneath, by the warmth, and by the angle of the knee. I can do a number of different movements, and even with wanting to generate deeper pressure, like with knuckling, or even deeper still, working with a reinforced thumb on the fascia between the quad muscles, coming right the way up into the hip, I can still generate a significant amount of pressure. But the obvious advantage is, although we're not talking about the muscles in the opposing area, I can immediately come round onto the hamstrings. And one of the things that used to really irritate me when I first started doing massage was having to do one side of the body and then go to the other side of the body. So I was losing effect here, waiting until I turned the client over before I got to work on the opposing side, or having to sit on the foot and balance, or hold the calf with one hand and only work with one hand. So here, my massage techniques are hugely facilitated. I can work with both hands all the time, and I can work the thigh in its entirety. My feedback from clients is that their leg feels like it's being treated as a whole rather than in bits, and actually the relaxation effects I find are more powerful in a shorter period of time because of all those different benefits and advantages. Now, if we look from a holistic perspective at the muscles of the quads generally, and then look a bit more specifically into rectus femoris. The quads form the second part of the journey of life, if you like, where the lower part of the leg relates to planning and preparation, like preparing to take that next step, and our relationship to things like time and space. The knee, if you like, represents then the moment when something is happening, and that might be an opportunity that we're going to step into or step up onto, or an obstacle that we need to try and navigate around. And so the concerns at the thigh is, do we have what we need to be able to take advantage of opportunities or to overcome obstacles? Okay. The kind of concerns that trigger the thigh are things like, do I have enough time? Okay, so we're transferring the time issue, but into our experience. Do I need to accelerate and move forward more quickly? So things like, do I have to move from just keeping a steady pace, which is momentum, to actually accelerating, which actually moves the energy more into the buttocks and the glutes. Anything that might help or hinder keeping our momentum and keeping going at a steady pace towards our goal, or taking advantage of opportunities or dealing with obstacles. So resources, in the modern world, things like money or assistance from other people or encouragement from our environment, all of those things here, because we're looking at the front of the leg, would then relate to the quads. I'll talk about how those same things are represented by the back of the leg at another time. Also, things like how complicated or simple our journey is moving forward is related to the front of the leg. If we decide that things are going to be complicated, sometimes we will slow down and take them more steadily. Sometimes we'll expect resistance and we'll be looking to push through that resistance. The muscles in this area often respond to that. But equally, if something's really complicated or challenging, sometimes we'll get nervous and our knees will go to jelly, like having to do a presentation, for example. And that's often because we're concerned about how things are going to go and whether we're going to have what we need to be able to deliver on what we want to deliver on. Often when I'm working on this part of the body with clients, I'll say to them, consider that right now, the flow of the massage, the momentum of what's happening, and you moving from where you are to becoming relaxed requires zero effort from you. So there's nothing that you have to try and move or change. There's nothing that you have to consider will get in the way. So you can just consider whether you might be getting in your own way of relaxing, might be making things more complex, or might be assuming that you're going to fall short and not reach where you want to get to. Bringing those considerations to the surface immediately starts to switch off the muscles in the legs.